The member for Wannon.
Hear, hear.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Portland Aluminium, located in my electorate of Wannon, directly employs 600 people. Across the country there are 60,000 jobs dependent on the aluminium industry. Will the Prime Minister guarantee that there will be no job losses in the aluminium industry as a result of the carbon tax?
The Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for his question. And of course I am aware of the aluminium industry he refers to in Victoria. I'm sure he'd freely acknowledge that it is there in Victoria because of the work of Labor Premier John Cain under his administration to ensure that regional Victoria had the benefit of those jobs, Mr Speaker. So I'm sure he acknowledges that to his constituency every day, the leading role of former Labor Premier John Cain. What I would say to the member who has asked the question is I'm all about Australian jobs. And what that requires us to do is not to freeze our economy in time, not to look to the past, but to build for the future. And I'd say to the member who's asked me the question, presumably he could have got up in this parliament many long years ago if he had been here under the Hawke government, and he could have said, you know, a similarly phrased question about an industry that was having its tariffs reduced. And he could have said then to the Prime Minister, will you guarantee no job losses? And of course, what is the history of tariff reform in this country, of economic reform, of floating the dollar, of trade liberalisation, all of the reforms that have built our modern economy? The legacy of those reforms is the prosperous economy we have today. And if we had said in the 1970s or 1980s or even the 1990s that we were going to freeze our economy in time, we would be poorer today than we are now, Mr Speaker.
Order.
Mr Speaker.
The Prime Minister will resume his seat. Her seat. Did I say? Her seat. And for once, I thank the member for Herbert for his interjection. The member for Wannon on a point of order.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. The question was about guaranteeing that there will be no job losses as a result of the carbon tax.
The member for Wannon will resume his seat. The Prime Minister is responding to the question. She knows that she is required to be directly relevant, and up till now I believe that she has been. Order. The Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And what I was saying to the member is during any of the waves of economic reform and transformation of our economy, there are people who raise fear about job losses. But economic reform and economic transformation on every occasion has left us stronger and more prosperous than we were before, and far stronger and far more prosperous than we would have been had we tried to freeze our economy in time. The future will be owned by those nations who are able to be nimble and to adapt to a low-carbon future. Well, I am for this nation being nimble and adapting to a low-carbon future. The course of freezing our economy in time is actually a course towards a poorer nation. It's a course towards less job opportunities for the constituents that the member represents in this place. Now, if the member doesn't want to trust me on these propositions, then he should turn to former Prime Minister John Howard, who was honest enough, to say to the Australian people that we needed to transform our economy through an emissions trading scheme, and I am being as honest as he was with the Australian people. We need to transform our economy. We need to price carbon. Former Prime Minister John Howard went to the 2007 election promising that, and the commitments I have in this place and to the Australian nation are comparable commitments. We must price carbon. We must transform our economy.
Member for
We
MacArthur.
must embrace the
Hughes,
challenges
sorry.
of the future,
Member for Hughes.
not try and run away. So don't be led down that path by the Leader of the Opposition. Play a role in shaping the future, working with the government to price carbon.